Hey, what's up everyone? GameDad here, coming at you guys with a brand new compilation video. This time we are taking a look at everything that I covered in my Game Boy Color series. So, come with me as we take a look at those two videos. Pokemon Crystal version was released by Nintendo in 2001 and is actually my personal favorite from this actual generation of Pokemon games. I don't know what it was about this one, I just was able to sink so many hours into this game, and I always had a blast playing it. And I mean, it was pretty cool being on Game Boy Color. You got all the different colors. It didn't just look, you know, like a colorized Game Boy game that you put into a Game Boy Color. It was actually purpose built for it. And I mean, the cartridge itself, it looked really cool. It had that like blue crystal kind of shell to it. Pokemon Silver version was released by Nintendo in 2000, and this one, along with the next one you'll see, Gold, were actually the first iterations of this particular generation of Pokemon. So it had, you know, the typical thing that you'd come to expect. It has the 3 different starter Pokemon. In Silver version, you can get some stuff that you can't get in Gold, and vice versa. So here's just a little bit of the intro showing, you know, that Lapras right there, and you can see the Lugia on the cover of the game. Now here we have Pokemon Gold version, also released by Nintendo in 2000 at the same time as the Silver version. And this one, just like with the last one, it has a little bit of a different kind of border going on right there. And on the cover of this particular case, of course, everything is gold instead of silver. And it actually shows, I believe that Pokemon's name is Ho-Oh. So it shows that bird Pokemon that you actually see in the very first episode of the original Pokemon TV show. Now here we have Pokemon Pinball, released by Nintendo in 1999, and this was kind of unique because it combined pinball with the whole catching mechanic of the various Pokemon games. So you had different kind of screens pop up, and based on whatever screen would pop up would determine what city you were in, it would determine what Pokemon were coming up, and then occasionally you'd have like little boss battle kind of things going on. So it was kind of a unique concept, and what was really cool is this particular game actually had a rumble feature, so you just threw a AAA battery in the game and you were good to go. Next up is Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, released by Nintendo in 2000, and this game was kind of like a Pokemon meets a Tetris match 'em up kind of game. And I mean, it was okay. I mean, I didn't really care too much for this game. As you can see in this footage, it has some bright colors and stuff like that, but overall, I mean, I wasn't really that into this game. And finally, the last Pokemon game in my Game Boy Color collection. That is the Pokemon Trading Card game, released by Nintendo in 2000. And this one in particular, I actually remember having a blast playing this game as a kid. I mean, it was so unique. It was a Pokemon game, but it wasn't like a regular adventure, because instead of going around having trainer battles, you would go around and you would battle with the actual Pokemon trading cards. So, I mean, at this time, I was super huge into the trading card game, and having this just meant that I could play the game anytime I wanted. So, this was awesome. Up next, we have Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, released by THQ in 2000. And this game, I gotta say, it actually controlled a lot better than you would expect a game like this on Game Boy to actually go. I mean, it was pretty simplistic overall, but the controls were actually really solid. And as you can see, there was some good like little motion graphics as he's swinging, climbing up the rope. And the fight mechanics were actually really on point. And it was fun to get through like destructible environments and actually fight different enemies, rescue hostages, things like that. It was a really fun game. Up next is a reimagining of a classic, that is R-Type DX, released by Nintendo in 1999. And this just takes that classic shmup, that shoot 'em up R-Type, and it just gives it a nice fresh spin, some nice updated graphics, things like that. The more that came onto the screen, I did notice that you would start to have a little bit of slowdown. The game would get kind of bogged and start chugging. But overall, I mean, it was still fun to be able to play like this full color, awesome version of R-Type just on a handheld. So, I mean, that was cool. Up next is Rampage 2 Universal Tour, released by Midway in 1999, and this just takes your classic Rampage gameplay and puts it in the palm of your hand. I mean, I thought other Rampage games actually control a lot better than this one, especially like once you get more into like more like the 16-bit era stuff like that. The games were a little more easier to control, but in this one, I mean, it was okay. It was a little clunky with the controls and kind of hard to get them to climb the buildings at times, but overall, I mean, it's a fun Rampage game. Up next, we got Rugrats Time Travel, released by THQ in 1999. And, don't let what would seemingly be a little cheap Nickelodeon game fool you. This game is actually pretty fun to play. I mean, I'll admit, I used to watch the cartoon a little bit, Rugrats, back in the day. It came out when I was a little bit older, so it was kind of out of my demographic. But I mean, the show was kind of entertaining, and the game really tapped into that entertainment value, and it was pretty fun. As you can see, it's got nice big sprites, and the controls were really responsive, and it played really well. Now here we have Tomb Raider, released by Eidos in 2000, and I guess this is sort of a reimagining of Tomb Raider like from the other consoles, but man, this game is awful. I mean, you can see right here, just from the sprites alone, it is just not very good. I mean, they really, really tried to, I don't know if they were going for like a hardware push or something like that, but the controls are absolutely horrendous in this game. Yeah, cool, they added some different animations, but the character model just looks terrible. Up next is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, released by Activision in 2000. And I gotta say, this is nothing like the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I mean, yeah, sure, I get that, there were hardware limitations putting it on a Game Boy, but honestly, this felt like kind of a weird ripoff of the old Skate or Die games on the NES. I mean, as you can see, I'm doing like the half pipe challenge here, but overall, the controls were not great, and this just, I mean, it's a completely different skate game that just happens to have the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater name on it. I really did not care for this. Now here we got Wario Land 3, released by Nintendo in 2000. And in this game, I mean, it's everything you would expect from a Wario game. Honestly, I think that it actually controlled better on the original Game Boy when you had like that first Wario Land game. This one, it feels like they tried too hard to, I don't know, too hard to live up to what it was before, and I feel like they just didn't execute it very well. I mean, the controls are pretty responsive, but overall graphically, I just think they tried and didn't really succeed. Next up is X-Men Mutant Academy, released by Activision in 2000. And this game, it's kind of like, every typical fight game that you would expect, but with X-Men characters. I mean, as you can see here, we got Cyclops and Storm. But I gotta say, as I was playing this game is like insanely difficult. I thought, maybe it would kind of ease in with the very first level or something like that. It did not, man. The AI in this game was just whooping my butt left and right, and I could barely get a hit off. So I don't know if I'm just terrible at it or not, but I didn't really care for it all that much. Next up, we have The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, released by Nintendo in 2001. And this game, along with the next one in this video, followed that same kind of thing that the Pokemon games really pioneered, where you would have a couple different games telling slightly different variations on a story, or maybe the maps would be a bit different, things like that. So this is Ages, and it focuses on one specific mechanic, whereas the next one, Seasons, actually focuses on a complementary mechanic. As I mentioned, here is The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons, also released by Nintendo in 2001 alongside Ages. And this one, same kind of thing. I mean, you get a little bit of a different intro, the color scheming is different, and you actually just go through and play basically the same game, or it's in like the same world, but with a different mechanic added to it. 720 was released by Midway in 1999, and this actually brings the arcade classic all the way to the Game Boy Color. And although the game definitely, is the same game in spirit, I feel like it's actually a lot harder to control on the actual D-pad of a Game Boy versus being able to use that trackball on the original arcade machine. And I found myself really having a hard time getting the controls down to where I could actually have some fun with the game.
Bust-A-Move Millennium was released by Acclaim in 2000 and just takes that classic Bust-A-Move gameplay and brings it to the Game Boy Color. I mean, as you can see here in the footage, it's super basic. The colors and textures and stuff are a little more primitive since they're on the handheld, but you still get that same basic gameplay that you know and love with any kind of Bust-A-Move game. I had a lot of fun being able to play this one. I really enjoyed it. Up next, we have Donkey Kong Country, released by Rare in 2000. And much like the original Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, this has that same kind of different, like, sprite kind of texture to the different characters and models. But I gotta say, it's pretty cool being able to have a game of this caliber from the Super Nintendo actually in a handheld. Now, it doesn't play as well, obviously, but you still are able to get that same kind of awesome Donkey Kong gameplay that you're used to. Here we have another classic brought back to life, that is Dragon's Lair, released by Capcom in 2001. And this takes the same kind of gameplay that you're used to on other systems from back in the day, old PCs and stuff like that, and it gives you that same kind of action on your Game Boy Color. It's just another one of those amazing titles that they were able to breathe new life into by putting it on a handheld for everyone to enjoy. Up next, we have Dragon Warrior Monsters, and this was released by Eidos in 2000. Now, this game takes what is already, at this point in time, a pretty beloved franchise, and it gives you that awesome mobile aspect to it. It feels to me kind of like a Final Fantasy-esque kind of game when played on the Game Boy Color, but it has all of the awesome adventuring aspects that you would expect from an RPG of this kind of caliber. So I actually had a lot of fun being able to play through this and capture some footage for the game. Up next, we have the man, the myth, the legend. It is Duke Nukem from GT Interactive, released in 1999. Now, this is nowhere near the quality that you would expect from a Duke Nukem game, and even though it's on a handheld, honestly, I expected better. I mean, Duke Nukem is all about big, crazy graphics and being able to just go out and blow up aliens, and this game, I just did not get that same feeling from it. It just really wasn't as fun as I would expect a Duke Nukem game to be, which was a real shame because, I mean, I'm sure it was awesome when it came out on handheld. Here we have Earthworm Jim Menace to the Galaxy, released by Crave Entertainment in 1999, and this is a follow-up to the original Earthworm Jim game that they had on the Game Boy. And this game, I mean, graphically, it's okay. It's consistent. The colors are okay. In some spots, it's pretty vibrant and everything. The controls felt a little bit wonky at times, but overall, I mean, I did get the vibe that I was playing an Earthworm Jim game. It wasn't the same as being able to play it on a Genesis, and I actually prefer it a lot more on that console. Up next, we got a classic. That is Frogger, released by Majesco in 1998. And this is just your classic Frogger game. As you can see here, you know, you get across the freeway, you get across the logs, try and fill in all those spots at the end. And they went ahead and added some nice color to it. The game is actually significantly easier than the original Frogger kind of games. But, I mean, it was still fun to be able to jam out for a little bit and pick up and play some Frogger. Up next, we have Gex Enter the Gecko, released by Crave Entertainment in 1998. And this is another one of those games that I don't feel it really lives up to its actual namesake. You know, the original Gex games are very, you know, 3D oriented, very platformer. I mean, I can honestly say this game is much brighter than those games, so that's kind of a plus. But this one, it just felt too cartoony for me. I mean, yeah, of course it's a secret agent Gecko that you're playing as, but I still expected a lot more from even a handheld game like this instead of just a super generic platformer. Up next is Kirby Tilt and Tumble, released by Nintendo in 2001. Now, unfortunately, because of its actual tilt gyro functionality, I was not able to capture the footage for this one because I don't have a Game Boy Color that can actually direct output video. But I can say that this game is really fun, and it's really cool being able to take advantage of that kind of gyro control to move Kirby around the screen and get him to get over different obstacles. So it was a really neat gimmick that they added to this game. Up next is Lego Stunt Rally, released by Lego Media in 2000. And this was another one of those early kind of Lego games before they really started getting a handle on what they wanted to do with their franchise. But this game, it has a very top-down kart racer, like old school arcade machine kind of feel to it. It does actually have kind of a auto assist or something going on whenever you're on the track, and you barely have to try to make the turns, and it'll just help you along the way. So I didn't really like that aspect of it because I felt that it took away some of the challenge of a game of this type. Here is The Lion King, Simba's Mighty Adventure, released by Activision in 2000. And this one, I gotta say, this one was actually a lot of fun. It reminded me of The Lion King on, say, Sega or Super Nintendo. Obviously, the graphics aren't as good, but it played really well. It was super smooth. The controls weren't clunky at all. And it was fun to just kind of roam around the jungle playing as Simba and be able to collect a bunch of different objects, face different enemies, things like that, and just have some good old-fashioned platforming fun. Here we have Magical Tetris Challenge, released by Capcom in 2000. And this game, it's basically just Tetris, and they added a few gimmicky things to it. But, I mean, at the same time, you can't really go wrong with a Tetris game. I mean, Tetris is awesome. That's why it's had so many different variations made, including the newer ones that have come out. So, I mean, yeah, it adds some Disney flair to it, but that's about it. Beyond it being a Tetris game, it's really nothing special. Up next is Oddworld Adventures 2, released by GT Interactive in 2000. And this is a continuation of the franchise. And honestly, I don't really feel like they made any kind of graphical updates other than just kind of colorizing everything. And I say colorize because it doesn't even seem like they actually had, painted textures or specific colors for sprite models or anything like that. It really looks like the old-fashioned black and white TV shows and stuff that were just colorized instead. And I mean, the gameplay is actually super clunky in this one. I prefer the original Oddworld Adventures personally. And lastly, for this particular video, we have Pocket Bomberman, released by Nintendo in 1998. And this gives you all of that Bomberman glory. You get to blow stuff up, you get to go around solving puzzles, things like that. But with this, they made the game more of like an adventure platformer kind of game, which was kind of fun to get away from the norm of the constant top-down Bomberman game that you would be used to. So it was pretty fun. It had a lot of the same mechanics, just more of in a side-scrolling game instead.
So there you have it, everyone. That was everything that I had in my Game Boy Color collection series. Now, it's not a huge collection by any means, but it is slowly growing over time, and the Game Boy Color was a fantastic handheld with a ton of variety. It did have a lot of kind of shovelware games on it, but overall, still a great handheld. Now, if you guys liked today's video, please let me know down in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as that little notification bell so you get an alert every time I get a new video coming out. Now, as always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.